Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. Steven here with Team Euphoric, and this is day 18 of the 80 Days to Your Dream Body course. Today's protein source is going to be beef liver, and today is a legs and abs training routine. And the theme for today's workout is CRAC PNF stretching. So right now, I'm going to be demonstrating how to perform CRAC PNF stretching. Now let's get started. And while we were resting, we are going to continue with our CRAC PNF demonstration. We've already done the hip and the knee, so now we are going to move distally to the ankle. And at the ankle, we are going to be focusing on the plantar flexors. With regard to the plantar flexors, the first one, we are just going to be going straight into dorsiflexion to stretch to the plantar flexors. And there's a couple different hand positions. One way that you could do it, if you have a very, very tiny patient or if they're very, very weak, you could take a stabilizing hand at the distal tibia and fibula, and then you could take your moving hand, you could cup the calcaneus, and then use your anchor as the fulcrum to use to guide the movement. So for this one, what we would do is we would just traction at the calcaneus and then lift and lean, and then we would instruct the patient to press on the gas. So they're going to push, so they would inhale, contract, and then exhale, point your toes toward their head, and then they would actively go into dorsiflexion. And again, as an added bonus, you could just gently assist them a little bit more. My preferred method when I'm focusing on the gastrocnemius or when I'm focusing on the plantar flexors is to place the foot on my trap. So what I would do personally, and this is just the way that I prefer, is I would take both hands under the calcaneus, cup it, and then I would get underneath the ball of the foot, and then I would traction at the calcaneus, lift, and then lean using my traps, and then instruct the patient. Press on the gas, they would actively go into plantar flexion, and then exhale, bring your toes toward your head, and then they would actively go into dorsiflexion. When they go into dorsiflexion, again, if you want, as an added bonus, you could just gently assist them and get a little bit deeper into the stretch. When we are focusing on the plantar flexors straight up at 0 degrees, just going straight into dorsiflexion, primarily we're going to be hitting the gastrocnemius. And again, because we're going straight up, we're going to be targeting equally the medial head and the lateral head of the gastrocnemius. With the soleus, same thing. We're going to be getting a lot of stretch in the soleus, and we're going to be getting an even distribution of the medial fibers of the soleus and the lateral fibers of the soleus. Some of the other muscles that are going to be involved, we're also going to be getting a little bit of the tibialis posterior, the flexor digitorum longus, the plantaris, and we're also going to be getting some stretch in the fibularis or the peroneus longus and the fibularis or the peroneus brevis. A couple of different modifications that we can make for these ones right over here is if we want to target more of the medial compartment of the calf muscles, what we can do is take them into lateral rotation. So we would just have them point the toes out, and we would do the same thing. So with the toes pointing out, we would anchor at the distal tibia and fibula, grip at the calcaneus, and then we would just lift, lean, ask them inhale, press on the gas, exhale, point your toes toward your head. They would actively go into dorsiflexion, and then again, we can just gently assist them. Again, my preferred method when I'm doing this is I would have them rotated out, and I would just cup the calcaneus with my hands, go underneath the ball of the foot, traction, lift, and lean. And that is if we want to target the medial compartment of the plantar flexors. When we are targeting the medial compartment, what's going to happen is we're going to be targeting more of the medial head of the gastrocnemius and the medial fibers of the soleus, and a little bit less of the lateral head of the gastrocnemius and lateral fibers of the soleus. If we did want to target the lateral fibers, what we would do is take them into medial rotation. So we would have them go toes in. When the toes are in, same thing. One hand distal tibia and fibula, one hand is going to cup the calcaneus. We're just going to lift, lean, instruct the patient inhale, push on the gas, exhale, point your toes toward your head, and they actively go into dorsiflexion. And again, as an added bonus, you could just gently guide them further into dorsiflexion. And again, with my preferred method, if I was going to be doing this way right over here, what I would do is just have them turn the toes in. When the toes are turned in, you can really go on either side. For me, what I would like to do is just do the same side. So if I'm doing their left, I'm going to be doing my right. And you could either do it this way, or if you want, you could do opposites. If it's opposites, it might be a little bit more comfortable. That way it's not jamming you in your neck. But you would just lift, lean, get into the stretch, inhale, push on the gas. They would actively go into plantar flexion. And then exhale, bring your toes toward your head. They would actively point their toes toward their head. And again, as an added bonus, you can just gently guide them deeper into the stretch. But when we are focusing with the toes pointed in, we are targeting more of the lateral compartment of the lower limb, of the posterior lower limb. So that means we're going to be targeting more of the lateral head of the gastrocnemius, less of the medial head of the gastrocnemius, and more of the lateral fibers of the soleus, and less of the medial fibers of the soleus. But our rest period is up. Time for set number 4. That was just a tiny taste of what can be found in my members only section. If you enjoyed it, become a member for only $5 a month to get access to hundreds of member only videos.